Hey guys, how's it going? It's Blight back with another deck profile. Been a while since I've done a deck profile, but I've recently picked up Voiceless Voice at my locals. It's a deck I really wanted since I love rituals, so I decided why don't we do a deck profile? So without further ado, let's get into the deck. Starting things off, we have the most important card, Low Prayers of the Voiceless Voice. She's a level 1 fairy, and she is basically the heart and soul of this deck. When she's normal or special summoned, she places a Voiceless Voice spell or trap face up in your spell and trap zone, meaning she cannot be ashed. She can be used as the entire tribute if you're ritual summoning a light or if you're summoning a light dragon or warrior monster, and if she's in the graveyard when a monster of said type is ritual summoned, you get to special summon her back from the graveyard. So she basically kind of just rotates and recurs herself. And if you have Voiceless Voice barrier up, then your opponent cannot attack her and they must attack into the ritual monsters, which is great. She has very weird stats 50 attack and 2050 defense. So yeah, that's interesting. This is actually the girl that was in the very old ritual spell called Novak's Prayer, and it was used to ritual summon Skull Guardian. It's like a really old obscure card that nobody used. I don't think it was even printed that much in the TCG, but now they made it into a whole archetype, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. But yeah, really great card. You want to see her and Skull Guardian in your opening hand. They get your entire deck going. So yeah, this deck really revolves around placing low and making use of her effects. Next up, we have three Diviner of the Herald. This is your other normal summon in the deck. Basically, another way that gets you into low. So what Diviner does is when she's normal or special summoned, you get to send a fairy monster from your extra deck or deck to the graveyard. And the one you'll be sending is Trias Hierarchia, because Trias Hierarchia lets you tribute a fairy or fairies from your field to special summon from the graveyard. And how this combo works is basically Diviner sends Trias, Trias activates in the graveyard, tributing Diviner, and then special summons itself. Then Diviner's other effect activates because she was tributed. You get to summon a level 2 or lower fairy from your deck, and that is low. So basically, it's another way to get into low, but also, if need be, you can send the extra deck monsters like Entis or Herald of the Arclight and get their effects as well. If I have a good hand, I always like starting off with Diviner instead of low, because it gets you an extra body on the field with Trias, which you can then use to ritual summon. So it's always good to start with her. Next up, we have Saphira, Dragon Queen of the Voiceless Voice. This is also another form of an older ritual monster, not as old. There was a ritual monster called Saphira, Queen of the Dragons. It was somewhere around the Shadol era, so maybe like 2014, 2015. I'm not sure exactly when, but this is like her human form, and then she transforms into the dragon or whatever. But yeah, as for the Voiceless Voice version, which is this one, this card is one of your main starters. What you do is she discards herself as cost, and then she sends a ritual spell from the deck to the graveyard, and if she did that, you get to search a ritual monster, which is light, warrior, or dragon. So basically, this allows you to set up the ritual spell in your graveyard and search out Skull Guardian or Seravis or Pendulum Graph Dragon. And she has another effect, which is basically you banish her from the graveyard to do a ritual summon. It's just a vanilla ritual summon. You can use any monster from your field or hand. So Saphira is a great card, and one you really want to start off with because she gets your combo going. Even if she gets ashed, because usually she's really good bait for ash, because usually they're going to try to ash her. You still get to use her ritual summoning effect from the grave, which is great. So basically, she's never really dead unless you're under shifter, but that's a different story. Yeah. You should remember she needs to be able to send a ritual spell to the graveyard in order to search. So if you are under shifter, you can discard her. She'll be banished, and she can send the ritual spell. It will also be banished, but because it didn't hit the graveyard, you don't get the search. So she does not work under shifter. Just keep that in mind. Then we have the old man Saravis, which is the basically like the human form of Saravis, the Ancient and Ascended, which is also an older ritual monster, but this one we actually use in the deck. Old Man Saravis, you do not want to see this guy in your hand. Instead, you want to special summon him off the trap. And what he does is when your opponent activates a card or an effect, he returns to the hand and special summons a ritual monster from the deck, which is light, warrior, or dragon, ignoring its summoning conditions. But then it returns to the hand at the end phase of the next turn. So if you open up a really good hand, you get him on the field, and then he special summons usually the ritual Saravis, which gets you and basically special summon negate of an inherent summon. He does have another effect. It very rarely comes up, but he can shuffle spells from your hand or graveyard into the deck, including a ritual spell to special summon himself from the hand. So basically, he can kind of recycle blessing and maybe the ritual spell if you really need it, and then you can resolve Saphira's effect or something. It very rarely comes up, but it's a thing. So yeah, old man Saravis, don't play more than one. Don't draw the old man. Then we get into the interesting stuff, which is the ritual monsters. Starting off, we have the Skull Guardian, protector of the Voiceless Voice. He is a retrain of the old Skull Guardian, and he does live up to his name as a protector, because if Low is on the field, you get an Omni Negate, and his attack jumps to 4100, which is huge. Also, when he's ritual summoned, you get to search out a Voiceless Voice monster. So the way you do this is basically when you special summon him, you want to use his effect to search as Chainlink 1, and then Chainlink 2 would be Low from the graveyard to special summon herself. That way he doesn't get ashed, and you get both of the cards. So ideally you want to see Skull Guardian and Low, or a way to get to them in your opening hand, because that's basically what you're going to be doing most of the time. The Omni Negate is great. It's completely free. The only requirement is that you have Low on the field, which is really not difficult to do in this deck. So yeah, great card. 2 copies are just ideal. Wouldn't play less, wouldn't play more. So yeah. And then we have the other 2 ritual monsters that we play. One Saravis, the Ancient and Ascended, and one Odd Eyes Pendulum Graph Dragon. I was really debating on playing 2 Saravis. It's a really good card, and sometimes I really miss having the second one, but I want to keep this deck to 40 cards, which is why I cut the second Saravis. And I really enjoy playing Odd Eyes in the main deck. A lot of people play this one in the side deck. I just find him really useful. So I prefer to main deck him and then have the one Saravis. So yeah. As for their effect, Saravis is basically like a walking solemn warning. When your opponent would special summon a monster, you return him to the hand to negate a special summon and destroy and banish the monster, not destroy. So what he negates, it's basically the special summons that do not start a chain, and that would be something like a Link Summon, Exceed Summon, Synchro Summon, or something like a Cyber Dragon. You cannot negate like a Fusion Summon or something like that. So yeah, he has the same stats as the old man, 2600 attack, 2800 defense. So pretty bulky in terms of defense at least, and you want to be summoning him off the old man, or if need be, you can summon him off the blessing to have like an extra negate. So yeah. As for Odd Eyes Pendulum Graph Dragon, he's a pretty interesting card. Level 7 Light Dragon, so he kind of fits the theme. You can summon him with your Saphira or your ritual spell or even the blessing. So yeah, what he does is when your opponent activates a spell, a card, or an effect, you negate the effect, then you place him in your pendulum zone, and then you can summon an Odd Eyes monster from the extra deck. Now, this is very cool because it lets you summon, it has lots of targets you can summon. You have the Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon, which can attack multiple times. You have the Clear Wing Odd Eyes Dragon, the Synchro one, that lets you negate a monster effect. And you also have the best one, which is Odd Eyes Meteor Burst Dragon, which is basically like an automatic win against Tempai if they can't out it, because it doesn't let them use monster effects in the battle phase. He has an additional effect where during the end phase you can return him to your hand to add a ritual spell from your grave or your deck to your hand. Doesn't come up as often. Just keep in mind you need to have a free pendulum zone, so that will be either the leftmost or the rightmost spell trap zone. When I play online, sometimes if it's a longer match, I end up placing like the cards in the pendulum zones because I keep forgetting that those are the new pendulum. I mean, not new, but yeah. If you remember, during the pendulum era, you had actually additional zones for pendulums, but now they're just moved to the leftmost and rightmost spell trap zones. So keep those free if you want to use Disguise effect. Next up, we have our old friend Kashtira Fenrir, who seems to keep dodging the ban list. Not that I'm complaining. I like to play Fenrir in this deck. It's a great opening card. I love seeing him in my hand if I'm going first. He searches out another copy of himself. You get to banish a face down. You get to banish a card face down if your opponent resolves a monster effect. And best of all, he's a level 7, so you can use him as a tribute for ritual summons. So basically, summon one, have him search another copy, then you can use the copy in your hand to do the ritual summon if you need extra ritual fodder. And then he does put pressure on the board because he can just banish something face down. Usually people go, sometimes they will imperm him, which is great because then I get to resolve my normal summons, which is like Diviner or Low, more easily. So yeah, Kashtira Fenrir, I love him. I wouldn't trade him for the world. So yeah, if I'm going second, sometimes I side him out for like Nibiru or something. Nibiru is actually pretty good as well because he's a light monster and it can be also used as a ritual summon. But if I'm sticking to the main deck, Kashtira Fenrir is my personal choice. That is it for the monsters. Now we're getting into the spells. We have 3 Barrier of the Voiceless Voice. This is probably the most important Voiceless Voice spell, so you want to max it out at 3. What it does is it's basically a continuous spell that lets you search a Voiceless Voice card, so not monster card, every turn. Very good effect. And the other effect that it has is if you have low and a light ritual warrior or dragon type monster, your light monsters cannot be targeted by card effects. Also, your opponent can only attack ritual monsters and not low. So it lives up to its name as a barrier. If you have low and Skull Guardian, they have to attack the Skull Guardian, which is 4100 attack. Also, they cannot target your light monsters. So something like Imperm to try to get rid of the Omni Negate of Skull Guardian just doesn't work. It also lets you search out the other spell that we use, which is Blessing of the Voiceless Voice. Also a continuous spell card. Usually if you open this, then you search what you're missing. If you open low, you set this from the deck. Activate this to add Blessing. Blessing is the latest addition to the Voiceless Voice. It's only necessary, you only need to play one really because it does recycle a lot of your resources. What it does is once per turn you can add a Voiceless Voice card from your grave or that is banished to your hand. And its other effect is when a non-ritual monster is normal or special summon, you get to do a ritual summon. And the ritual summon monster cannot be destroyed by battle, meaning this lets you do ritual summons on your opponent's turn. And there's also a neat little combo with Almirage and Secure Gardna, which lets you do an additional ritual summon during your turn, so you get all the benefits. Great card. If your opponent doesn't out this, it gets you just snowball off of it, and then you really recycle your resources so easily. You can grab back your banished Saphira. You can grab low from the grave. Whatever you need, this card is just super good. Then we have the 2 ritual spells, Prayers of the Voiceless Voice. This card's main purpose is to be sent to the graveyard by Saphira so you can resolve her effect. But basically, yeah, it's your typical ritual spell. You get to summon a light ritual monster by tributing light monsters from your hand or your field. So it's a little bit restrictive in that part. You cannot tribute Fenrir from this using this card, but you can tribute the Old Man, you can tribute Low, the other light rituals, whatever. And its second effect is if your ritual monster leaves the field because of your opponent's card effect, you get to banish this from the grave and special summon another ritual monster from your deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. Meaning if they out your Skull Guardian, you can just banish this and special summon another one. So yeah, pretty good card. I wouldn't play it more than 2 or less. I try cutting it down to 1, but you're gonna miss the second copy, so definitely a bad idea. Just 2 is the perfect ratio. You have to play this. I'm really hoping they get the second ritual spell, because then you'd have more targets for pre-preparation of rites, which is the next card on our spell lineup. Not much to say about this one. Add the ritual spell prayers that I just showed you, and Skull Guardian. That's what it does basically. It ends up being kind of dead if you draw it later, but you know, it is what it is. You can cut it down to 2 if you need some more space, but I wouldn't play less than 2. It's a good card to, I mean, it grabs you 2 cards, so that's never a bad thing. But I do hope that in the future they get a second ritual spell that's at least semi-useful, so we have more targets for this thing. And then a card we all like to use to boost the consistency of decks, which is Pot of Prosperity. 2 copies. Why 2 copies? Because number 1, I don't have a third copy, and number 2, I would like to stick to 40 cards, so this was just it just boosts your consistency. The extra deck for this deck is really irrelevant. You're always going to be able to banish 6 cards. The only relevant extra deck monsters would be Almirage, Secure Gardna, 1 copy of Dynamondo, and maybe the targets for Diviner if you need like Entis or Arclight. But you can always banish 6, and then it just lets you get your combo pieces. Or if you've already opened up a good starting board, it lets you grab something like a hand trap or whatever you need. It's also a good bait for Ash. If I end up opening something like a Low, Saphira, Barrier, or Pot, I would start with this, and usually that would get ashed, so I can continue from there. So great card. Hope it doesn't get hit or anything on the ban list. Took a while to get cheaper reprints, and yeah, it used to be a really expensive card. And then we have the one for one. This is just another way to get the Low. Very old card, still pretty good. Discard a monster to special summon a level 1 monster from your deck. Not the ideal way to get the Low, but still a way, so yeah. And then we have some traps. We have Radiance of the Voiceless Voice. Great trap. What it does is it has 2 effects. Both are quick-like effects, so you can activate them. One lets you destroy this card and as many cards as your opponent controls, up to the number of light ritual dragon or warrior monsters that you control. So usually you're going to get at least 1 or 2 pops off of it. And then the second effect, the one that you would use usually during your turn, is you shuffle a spell card from your graveyard into the deck to special summon a Voiceless Voice monster. Usually it's going to be the Old Man Sravis, and then he's going to summon the ritual version of himself later on. Now that we have Blessing, you don't have to worry about this card or keeping it on the board, because you can just very easily recycle it during your turn, set it again, and then you'll be able to use the popping effect on your opponent's turn again. So great card. Usually the end board that you want to go for is Skull Guardian, Low, Barrier, Blessing, and Radiance. Or if you weren't able to get all of those on your turn, you can use either Dynamondo or Blessings to do a ritual summon on your opponent's turn, or summon a ritual monster for that matter. And then the Low that gets summoned from the graveyard would place the Radiance, and then you have Radiance as well as an interruption. So this deck's end boards don't look scary at first, but they actually really are once you read into it a lot. So if you see like low Skull Guardian, you're like, okay, so there's an Omni negate and I cannot target him. That's not too much. But then it just snowballs off of that, and you get some crazy results. So yeah. Then we have the 3 Imperm. This is still my hand trap of choice. Really good card. And unlike the monster hand traps, this doesn't trigger your opponent's triple tactics. So yeah, I always like to play Imperm and Ash. Then we have some triple tactics talents that I mentioned, and one Called by the Grave, just to dodge some hand traps, and again to get some extra value off of your hand traps. I find that in this format, stealing your opponent's monster is probably the best choice. If you open up badly, you can also go for the draw too. Or if your opponent already used like a hand trap, then you can look at their hand and get rid of a second hand trap, and then just plan your plays and your negates, because seeing your opponent's hand is just, very beneficial. So I really like this card in the main deck, but I usually end up siding it if I'm not going first. So yeah. Then we have, last but not least, 3 Ash Blossoms. Maybe I should have put her in the monster lineup, but yeah, she's more like she's the definition of a hand trap. Still a pretty good card. Not much to say about Ash. And that was it for the main deck. Let's move on to the extra deck. Like I said, the extra deck for this particular deck isn't that important, but you do have some monsters that are playable and that you want to kind of sometimes resolve, and that is Dynamondo. It's a level 2 link monster, Earth Cybers. Doesn't look like a Cybers, but yeah, it is what it is. So what it does is when it's link summoned, you can spin a opponent's card and the ritual monster from your grave back into the deck. So it's a nice way to remove something that cannot be like destroyed, but you mainly want to use it for its other effect, and that is a quick effect. During your opponent's turn, you tribute it, and then you target a ritual monster in your graveyard, and then you either special summon it or add it to your hand. So how this works is, if you use low and Skull Guardian to link summon him, and your opponent's draw phase or standby phase, whatever, use Dynamondo's effect, bring back the Skull Guardian. Low will special summon herself from the graveyard, and then you get to place usually the trap, because if you have the 2 spells that you placed on your turn, you want to place the trap on your opponent's turn. 2 copies, because sometimes it comes up, but usually you can just banish 1 copy if you're resolving your Pot of Prosperity. Moving on, we have Salamangreat Almirage and his best friend Secure Gardener. So this is a little combo that works with your Blessing of the Voiceless Voice. You use Almirage basically to get low into the graveyard, and then you add her back with the Blessings, and then you use Almirage to link summon into Secure Gardener, which then triggers the Blessing, letting you do a ritual summon using the low in your hand. Secure Gardener cannot be used as a link material, but it does have a nice effect where first time you would take battle or effect damage, you don't take damage. So, and it has 1,000 attacks, so unlike Almirage, it's not super useless. So yeah, but you mainly use this just to trigger the Blessing on your turn 1, so you can extend your combo a little bit further. And then we have the targets for Diviner, which is Elder Entity Entis and Herald of the Arclight. If you end up opening Diviner and Trias, you would usually then send Arclight, so you get to search Ritual Spell or Ritual Monster because you already have Trias, but most of the time we'll be sending Trias. And then Elder Entity Entis is also an option if you need to pop something like Floodgate or anything annoying. So these 2 are always in the extra deck if you're playing Diviner. And then we have some targets for our Pendulum Graph. We have Odd-Eyes Rebellion Dragon, Odd-Eyes Rebellion Dragon Overlord, and Odd-Eyes Winged Dragon. And I'm missing a Meteor Burst Dragon at the moment. I'll try to get one in locals, but definitely I would play one because that's probably the best one you can special summon off of Pendulum Graph. This basically just lets you overlay into this one, which has 3,000 attack and can attack 3 times. That's what it does. And this one lets you negate a monster your opponent controls, but it's not a quick effect. It's on your turn, and it has 3000 attacks, so it's decent. I mean, it's a thing. But usually Meteor Burst is the one you want to use, especially against Tempais, so yeah. And then we have just some generic links like Lena the Light Charmer. Sometimes it comes up, lets you link climb. Celine, Queen of the Master Magicians. If I end up sighting in like an effect Veiler or change something, she can link climb into access code. And then there's Underworld Goddess. And the last one is supposed to be Relinquished Anima. I don't have a copy. If I did, I would play it. You can use load to just go into Anima and do its thing. I have Donner Dagger for hire, just random pop. So yeah, that is it for the extra deck and for this deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed, and this time I plan to do a test hands video side to side with this one, so I can show you some of the combos and how the deck works basically. I might even do a live stream where I do some duels. I need to practice and get my ritual skills back to full power. Hope you enjoyed. Stick around for more, and I will see you guys later. Bye bye.